Good morning, traders. Chris Weston here, head of research at Pepperstone. It's now 6:50 Eastern Standard Time. We've seen the US cash market close. Obviously, we're looking ahead for Asia. There's been small moves to the downside, I suppose, in commodities. People are talking about the Delta variant holding some of the bulls back. Yeah, obviously that's something that we need to continue to watch very closely. But there hasn't been a huge amount of news really for the headline writers. That will change as we come through into US cash trade in the session ahead. Obviously, we've got Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan kicking off Q2 earnings. People are expecting earnings per share on an aggregate basis to pull back a little bit in Q2, but then they'll ramp up into Q3 and Q4. And actually, if you look at sell side consensus earnings, they have pushed up about 37% year to date for the full year numbers. So earnings have been pushed up, and I think that's been really underpinning the equity move that we've been seeing. It's not just been about that flow. It's not all just been about liquidity from central banks, fiscal support, the drawdown we've seen in the TGA, for example. Earnings have been ratcheted up, and that's kept the PE multiple of the market fairly consistent going forward. We've obviously got CPI numbers coming out at 10:30. That could be a big one there. So watching bond markets, specifically on the front or sort of belly of the curve around 5-year treasuries, that could have a really big impact on what's happening in not just banks, given that Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are reporting, and they make their money from borrowing short and lending at the long end of the curve. But it could have some big influences on the likes of dollar Swiss and dollar yen and some of the funding currencies there. So, yeah, do obviously watch your exposure. Gold could be very sensitive to what we've been seeing there. So I think if we get a headline number north of 5%, if the core number comes out north of, say, 4.2%, then, I think yields could sell off, and that could have impacts on those markets there to look at. Let's have a quick look at the spreadsheet just to give a sense of what's hot, what's not. This is not a systematic strategy. It just tells me really on a daily chart, which of course is a bit of a longer term time frame, how price is set up, whether price is above the 5-day and 20-day exponential moving average. If it is, you get a green reading and bullish. If it's below both, then you get a bearish reading. I want to see if price is above or below the central pivot point, and whether the 9-day RSI is above 60 or below 40. Gives me a sense of what's moving. And I want to look at a confluence of factors, though. So we can see that in sterling Aussie, probably the only one in the currency pairs that I'm monitoring at the moment, which has this confluence of indicators. It tells me that, without even looking at the chart, that price is moving higher. Aussie CAD to the downside, but we haven't got that natural bearish reading of the RSI being below 40. It's still sort of mid-range at the moment. Still a bit of work to do. We can see that we got those bullish readings immediately on some of these US equity markets. I'm not sure that's going to surprise. We saw new highs coming through there. In fact, if you're looking at US equity markets, if we look at within the sectors, as you can see here, financials working really well, comm services, REITs doing nicely. And you can basically see how the system's set up. Energy down about 11 basis points and staples taking a few points out. That will probably flow through into Asian markets as we come through. And we've seen a nice move up in the German market as well. That's had a reasonable gain there as well. So financials really the place to be. We can see, look at the bearish moves we've been seeing in crypto. So for whatever reason, haven't followed the news closely, but we are seeing some of these cryptos under pressure. We've got bearish reversals kicking off in a number of different coins that you can see here. Bitcoin bearish reversal, Chainlink, Bitcoin Cash, Stellar, and also in Ethereum as well. So price has made a new high. Bulls have come in and smacked it back down. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to start a trend, but it does show a slight change of ownership there, and it does seem that the bears have wrestled back some control, and we may be going on to test some key levels. So let's go and have a look at the charts. Immediately, I want to go and have a look at these crypto moves, because they are fascinating. Link's one that was on my radar. I was looking for a move above 20 for buying positions. We got a move above there, didn't close. I always want to wait for a close. It tells me that we've got that confirmation of who's in control. That hasn't happened, and now you can see that pin bar reversal was then the stage for a move lower. You can see here that we got this reversal playing through, so we made a new high. Price has come down. The question is now, is this momentum going to continue to take us back down to 15? We'll have to see. This is daily charts, and trading Bitcoin off daily charts could be quite dangerous. But the flow that we're seeing at the moment is that this 20 level is really, really key in this crypto at the moment. Let's have a look at Bitcoin. Because we've got this trend that's been in place really since mid-May. and that's coming in around 32,000, just above that level. And if that breaks, obviously, then we've got this horizontal support levels that come in around 31,100. So we are coming back down. We've had another reversal playing through. So price has made a new high. The sellers have it looks like it's going to close below there. So can that kick through? What you want to see in these bearish reversals is the follow through selling to play through. That would then confirm that there's been the change of ownership. So this has to be on the radar. And Ethereum as well. You can see that we're testing the 200-day moving average. We tried to break out these series of highs, failed again. Has this got more downside, or are people going to come and buy the dip in this one? So crypto looks fascinating at the moment. Let's have a look at these commodity trades because copper, we've got the Chinese GDP numbers that come out tomorrow, midday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The interesting thing here is that we're still looking for 8% growth. Is that backward looking? Yeah, absolutely. It's 100% backward looking. But will it move markets? Not so sure. Remember same time we're getting industrial production, fixed asset investment, and retail sales numbers as well. So they'll be watched closely by the markets. We're very focused on what's been happening in dollar CNH, but copper's been a really good proxy here. You can see that we've got this sort of high, the 24th of February swing high. Markets have really failed to move here. Now, I quite like what I'm seeing in terms of copper. If I was going to take a position, I'd probably be short. I'll probably be long in very, very small size. We can see that we tried to take down the 5-day exponential again. Price has held that quite nicely. We made this higher high off support. That was a really powerful move. Unfortunately, we couldn't close and hold and close that convincingly above this prior level. We've created a lower high here. Can we now push back up again? Can we give this another chance to breathe? If it does, I'd be looking to go long in small size and then add as we start moving back into 446 a pound. I think that could be an interesting trade. Obviously, you've got a natural stop loss 422. Obviously, everyone's going to have stop losses below that level, but that seems to be the place where if it can close below there, you'd be looking to square reverse in that position there. So 446 is the level I'm watching very closely there. Crude prices, you can see that we've just got 74.71. We're down 74 basis points in crude. Price has tried to make a new low, failed. And we've come back up again, which is somewhat bullish, I suppose. But we're sort of chopping around. It's a tough trade to be in crude at the moment. But if this does kick back above 75 cents, perhaps we can see a better bid coming through in long positions there. Gold's really interesting. Of course, you've had this break of this uptrend that came through. At 1876 on the 14th of June, we came down to 1760. We sort of hobbled along. We had made a move back into the 38.2% retracement. It needs to break 1815. We've got what I was looking at last night was this inside day, whether we were going to see an inside day. We were leaning 1812, 1796, the two levels. If it could break either side of those, then that could be the stage for a move into what was the implied volatility move, 1842, 1776. Hasn't happened. We've just got this kind of messy bar that's really played through. But yeah, again, and if I was looking at long positions, I want to be looking at buying momentum, similar to what we saw in copper there. So really want to wait for 1816 to give way. Maybe the CPI number changes that tonight. But if we get a break of 1816, then I'll be looking for 1841, and if we can get a nice close below this prior low, the 1796, then I'll be looking for 1775. It's an interesting one at the moment, pretty neutral on this. We've just got the 5-day moving a bit moving sideways. Which way does this go? I've got my parameters fairly well defined. Let's have a look at those indices markets. You can see S&P making a new high. As I said, financials doing really well, up at 1%. Com services putting in some points there. So one to watch. You can see there again, just the way the sectors have shaped up. The DAX has worked quite nicely. You can see the break of the downtrend. We're looking for new highs in the DAX. That could be a momentum long in this position. So watching that one very closely. The Nasdaq continues to work quite nicely. Let's have a look at the stocks that we're seeing within that. AMC continues to trade with a bit of life, a bit of heavy at the moment. Can this now kick off? You can see it's being defined by this 5-day exponential, which is moving lower. Coinbase had a move down. Obviously, that's a reflection of what we've been seeing in the coins. And also you can see Tesla having quite a good day, up 4% there as well. JP Morgan kicking off earnings tonight. Buyers ahead of that situation. You've seen Goldman Sachs having a nice day as well. So people are buying the banks ahead of these earnings. I think the fact is as well, we've seen some sellers in the bond market again. That's very good for bank earnings. They borrow from the short end, they sell at the long end. So definitely keeping our eyes firmly on the banks, and also keeping our eye on some of these meme names, which we're getting some love. Also, we're getting some selling at the moment. The dollar. Well, we tried to make a new high, tried to push higher. We sold off into the 5-day. Can we trade below Friday's low? That's the one thing we're going to be watching going forward. Sterling Aussie was the trade that came up on my radar that's strong, and rightly so. I mean, it is the highest levels now really since May of last year. But the last 2 days you've seen clear indecision playing through, so doji playing through. But I think if this does kick up, then go along for the ride. This is one that's starting to trend, but there's a bit of indecision to push that trend higher at the moment. So the dollar up smalls on the day. Dollar CAD was looking a bit weak, not a huge amount. We're just chopping around sideways at the moment. One trade that I do like fundamentally, but we're not necessarily seeing that in the technicals at the moment, is being short Aussie against the Kiwi. I think this is a really good reflection of what's happening in rate differentials and policy differentials. So if this rolls down, I'm going to go along and attack this one from the short side. But I think from a policy divergence, this is a really clean play, and I think what we're seeing in New Zealand relative to Australia, and certainly with the COVID trends, is one that could be of interest as well. Not really seeing a huge amount there coming through in euro dollar. But at the moment, it's really about what's happening in equities. We're watching what's happening in the banks. We're watching what's happening in some of these meme names as well. We're watching the coins. They're looking pretty weak at the moment, and equities continue to grind higher in this moment. So continue to watch this one. CPI in focus tonight. Let's trade it with Pepperstone.